How's everyone doing tonight? Are you ready for a spending revolt?
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, my name's Teresa Oelke. I'm the Arkansas Director for Americans for Prosperity. And you know what I love about Jonesboro is when I look around, I see familiar faces. I see people who have been with us through the Hands Off Our Healthcare fight. Remember that fight? That was a hard one to lose, wasn't it? Well, I'll tell you what, we're not going to give up, are we?
No, ma'am.
And that $1.2 trillion to estimates, our $3.1 trillion bill, we're going to keep fighting on. But we're here for a spending revolt, and we're here for good reason. Because our federal government is spending our children and grandchildren into bankruptcy. Anybody remember the deficit clock? Remember the clock that they hung in New York City? Well, our spending is so unimaginable that in the words of Captain James T. Kirk, our debt has gone where no debt has gone before. That's right. And they've had to replace the debt clock in New York and add 2 extra digits to it. 2 extra digits. Well, how bad is the spending? If you look at what they spent this year, we spent $1.47 trillion more than we took in. $1.47 trillion. That means we paid for entitlement programs and we paid for interest on the debt, and everything else went on the national credit card for our children and grandchildren to pay for. In fact, every minute our government, no, I'm sorry, not even a minute, every 30 seconds our government incurs $1 million in new debt. $1 million in new debt from the interest on the deficit. Isn't that amazing? If you read Forbes magazine's article, they estimate our debt and obligations at around $70 trillion. That's what we owe. To put that into perspective, if you take the money supply in the entire world, money market funds, traveler's check, the whole enchilada, that equals $60 trillion. So that's right, our debt and deficit is more than all of the money in the world. But the great thing about it is we can solve the problem today. So our kids actually do have an opportunity to grow up in a country that is more prosperous and more free than the country that we have right now. To give you an idea of how solvable the problem is if we would have only spent projected budgets for the last 4 years, if we would have just spent at projected budget levels, and I assure you there's increases in those because government likes to project a little cushion, we would be able to cut our deficit in half today. Now that's a short amount of time to accomplish so much, but this is the important thing. We won't be able to do that unless the people we send to Washington, D.C. or Little Rock are committed to reining in out-of-control spending. Now, I'm going to give you just a couple quick examples, and then I'm going to introduce our speakers. But let me ask you this question, true or false? Do you believe this is true or false? Do you believe that our stimulus money, our failed stimulus money, went to create a pedestrian tunnel under a road in Florida? True or false? True. Actually, that's false because the tunnel was for turtles. The tunnel was for turtles that went under the highway. What about $775,000 to the Food and Science Research Institute that oversees pickle research in Pennsylvania? True or false? Sound true? Well, that's actually false because that money was spent right here in Arkansas, $775,000. What about one riding lawnmower that cost $1,000 and was said to create 60 jobs? True or false? There you go, true, that one's right. That was reported in Fayetteville, Arkansas, that one $1,000 lawnmower created 60 jobs. And what we know and what we need to make sure the people we send to Washington know is that the real way to create jobs is to let people keep their own money. That's right. Because a few dollars with hard work and determination in the pocket of a small business person makes names like Sam Walton a household name in the United States, or J.B. Hunt, or in fact, we met the jacuzzi manufacturer last night in Little Rock, Arkansas. And it's money in the pocket of the businessman who out of necessity and ingenuity solves problems and creates jobs. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our president of Americans for Prosperity, Tim Phillips. He travels tirelessly and is a great advocate for freedom.